Hey everybody, I'm Spencer Aronfeld and welcome to the Trust Me, I'm a Lawyer podcast. With me as always is my co-host and our executive producer, Nory Aronfeld. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing good. I do feel a little bit like it's Groundhog Day, and the only exciting thing for me is the opportunity to talk to exciting and interesting guests on our podcast that makes this experience of being in quarantine a lot more tolerable. And our guest today is someone that I know and love, and he's an extremely interesting and successful lawyer. Why don't you tell everybody who our guest is?
Today we have Alex Barthet, who's a University of Miami graduate, cum laude, and
Go Canes.
board certified construction lawyer, who's going to talk with us about how that field is surviving during the coronavirus.
Yeah, he is. Hey, Alex, welcome to the podcast.
How are you guys doing today?
It's first of all, it's just great to see you. I miss you. I haven't seen you in it seems like forever. So it's nice to see you.
I know it's been a couple of months now, right?
And I have to say that the quarantining is agreeing with you because you look wonderful.
You know, a lot of people have gained weight. Over my shoulder, you can see we bought a Peloton.
Oh yeah.
So we're actually trying to get in better shape over here at the Barthet household.
I can tell you this, some of the people that you and I know and love are refusing to come on the podcast simply because they put on a few pounds during the period.
That's funny.
Alex, I think of you all the time for a variety of reasons, but one thing that I always think of you, I go for a run in the morning and I run down Coral Gables, down to Douglas Road and come back. There is so much construction going on between Lejeune Road and Douglas.
Yeah.
It's like they are building a city. And one of the things that I've noticed, first of all, construction doesn't seem to be affected at all from my perspective with this pandemic. They seem to be going at it full blast. Is that what you're seeing?
So yes and no. So any job, what we're seeing and our clients are telling us is that any job that was underway or right about to get started and the financing was in place, everything was good to go, those jobs went forward and have even accelerated because owners and contractors want to get them done as soon as they can and move as quickly as possible. So that's what everyone is seeing around South Florida, just all of that work that was underway continuing to move forward. So the flip side is that jobs that were a little iffy, had tough pro formas, didn't have their bank financing yet. A lot of our clients are telling us those have been delayed or completely shelved, depending on what happens in the economy. So I think while you see things now, the question is for the construction market, what is it going to look like 3, 6, 12 months from now? That's the big if.
One of the things that bothers me the most about seeing the construction workers out there with their orange suits and their reflecting vests and their helmets, none of them are wearing masks.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on...
These are the ones I saw.
Well, it depends on when, right? So, March, well, they should be. Okay. You know, the municipal code under the guidelines pretty much require them to be wearing masks, keeping distance, not having group meetings, wash stations. All of that is supposed to be happening. If not, they run the risk that their job site could be shut down. And the last thing a contractor wants is that job site to be shut down because it's generating revenue.
Okay, so to be fair, Alex, and you're right as always, I didn't actually see them on the sites. I'm just seeing them walking around or standing around that minivan that opens up the back and they're selling food out of it. So I didn't actually see them on the site. I just see them in the commute, if you will, to and from the site.
Yeah, you know, it's a shame because they are a representative of the construction community. I would hope that they would do better at making sure that people that see them as essential workers, which they are, that they maintain that level of that heightened awareness of the requirements. You know, when you go to Publix and they're wearing a mask, it's no different than the construction worker. He or she should be wearing a mask too. But for the most part, a couple of jobs have been shut down because of failure to comply with those requirements. But for the most part, jobs have been running as usual, you know, and as I'm sure you saw in the paper, right? The beach was open and then it was closed, right?
Yeah.
So lots of people can't wait to get out, only to then get shut down again.
So who's policing these sites to make sure they're in compliance with the regulations?
The municipal government is generally the one in charge. So building inspectors and the police, you know, different municipalities have sent their police uh, officers to visit the sites to make sure that they are in compliance. And the various construction trade organizations around the country, and especially in South Florida, have been on their members to make sure that they comply. So generally, we have high compliance. Is it perfect? As you saw, I guess this morning on your run,
Yeah.
no. But
And what about folks who are doing contracting in houses? Are there requirements that they need to, you know, if I had somebody coming in here building a wall or tearing down a wall, what kind of
all
obligations?
those requirements are the same. There's really no difference. That whether you're outside building a 50-story high-rise or changing a disposal, the requirements are the same. You're supposed to do all of the same things. And what folks need to know about this process is if you are calling a contractor to do any work in your house, in your commercial unit, they should be maintaining all of those safeguards, wearing a mask, wearing gloves, keeping appropriate distance, not just from you, but from the other people to the extent possible. In construction, it's not so easy, right? You know,
Right.
typically you may have a worker and an apprentice, you know, and they need to be in close proximity to one another to actually execute the work. So it becomes complicated.
They have to do some remediation here in the house we're living in, and it's so bad or so intense that we decided to move out while they're doing it, because we're going to have dozens of workers coming in and out of the house, you know, day and night. And I'm just concerned, first of all, it would be uncomfortable under normal circumstances, but I'm just concerned, given that we're all in quarantine, that we're unnecessarily being exposed to whatever they may have.
Yeah, no, it's a valid concern, right? Because when you call the plumber, and that plumber's been to 3 places today and 4 places yesterday and 2 places before then, right? I mean, you know, that's, again, it's when your toilet is stopped up or your plumbing doesn't work, you know, that plumber becomes a pretty essential worker, right? To keep
Especially in
society.
our house. Yeah.
Yeah, but what you need to remember is that while you may need their help and they need to comply with the rules, you should not, as a user of construction services, let your guard down. You should not let the coronavirus change whatever safeguards you would normally or should normally put in place when contracting with anybody. So, for example, you know, do you have a contract? What are the terms and conditions? Try to minimize paying too much up front, because like most people, the incentive to finish work is to get that last check. So, you know, I get calls frequently from people who have a hard time with a contractor to get them to finish their work and find out that they've paid pretty much all of the value of the work. There's no incentive for the contractor to come out and finish. And then the last thing is to get releases, releases from the contractor every time you pay them. It's less of an issue on small work, but even on work that's several $1,000s or tens of thousands of dollars, when you issue that check to the contractor, you want to make sure that you get a release of lien from not only that contractor, but from all of the subs and suppliers that provided labor and materials on the job. Because what people don't know about construction is that if you pay your contractor and that contractor doesn't pay the plumber, the electrician, or the material supplier, they may be able to put, the supplier or the subcontractor may be able to put a lien on your house or on your structure. And it's not a defense to say, well, I paid the contractor, he should have paid you or she should have paid you.
I didn't know that.
You may have to pay twice. That is the power of the lien law that exists in Florida.
And so you raise a great point. You know, most people probably don't think of calling a construction lawyer until things go wrong. Maybe the best advice is to consult with you before you even sign a contract.
That would be, I would have a lot less work if more people did that. So we maintain 2 websites. You can see over my shoulder here. This is the Lien Zone. The Lien Zone is where we focus on information for the construction industry for construction professionals. But we also have another site called contractorconflicts.com and a separate YouTube channel and podcast channel where we focus on the same issues, but from the owner's perspective.
Wonderful.
So if you're an owner and you have issues about contracting with your contractor, if you go to contractorconflicts.com, we have a lot of information. As you know, Spencer, every legal issue has at least 2 sides, right? So what should you do if you're the owner isn't
Right.
the same as what you should do when you're the contractor. Same as, you know, in your field, what is it that you do when you're the cruise ship operator versus the cruise ship passenger?
Correct. So if people are out there watching this podcast and they're like, you know what, this might be a great time to put a swimming pool in my backyard, or this might be a great time to finally convert that garage into a home theater. Do you provide the kind of services where people can say, hey, Alex, you know, will you take a look at this contract? Will you advise me what to do?
Generally, the answer is yes. It's a little harder for smaller projects because sometimes the costs of our service may not be warranted. But the answer generally is yes. We will look at all of those issues, and you know, just to send us an email, and we can usually give you a quote on what we think it will cost to provide that service. But again, if you are an owner, we have tried very hard to put a lot of actionable and useful information on the contractorconflicts.com website to answer questions about liens and contract terms and those types of things. So, but actually, now is if you have the ability, financial ability, now is a pretty good time to get construction because while you see them working, construction has not been immune from layoffs, and as a result, you probably can get a better deal today than you would have in January.
Well, that explains the urgency to get this this problem in our own house resolved, because it's probably cheaper now than it would have been a few months ago.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
You have a question?
Well, I guess I didn't really know what construction law was going into this podcast.
Do you know it now?
I do think I have a better understanding for sure. But like, would you say that it's mostly like contractual, like litigation, or like focusing more on contracts? Because I didn't really know, because my dad being a personal injury lawyer, I thought maybe it would have to do with like on-site difficulties at construction sites and stuff. But I guess, would you agree that it'd be more focused solely on like contracts and stuff?
So there's lots of different aspects to this. What we focus on is pretty much 3 things. So one is contract review and negotiation. So kind of what happens at the beginning of the construction. So we'll help owners and contractors and subcontractors and engineers, anyone in the construction process, we will help them deal with their contract issues, whether it's drafting a contract, reviewing and modifying a contract. So that's part 1. The next part is anything that happens during the course of construction, typically for the tradesperson, but again, sometimes for the owner developer. So someone put a lien on the property, how to deal with it. The plumber hasn't been paid, how do we help get them paid? The roofer walked off the job, what do we do to deal with that problem? So anything that happens in the course of the project, which sometimes requires litigation, or arbitration. And then the last piece of what we do is construction defects. So a contractor built a building and now the windows are leaking, the roof is leaking, the railings are on the balconies aren't working, and there's usually litigation, typically which involves construction, involves insurance, and we'll get involved in that. But that's just what we do. There's lots of different things associated with construction beyond that. So for example, OSHA may make a claim on or cite someone. So there are lawyers that do a lot of OSHA work. As you mentioned, there's the injury component. If someone gets injured on a job, how does that affect the project? So it's a significant part of the economy. And as a result, it has a lot of specialists in the field to serve that industry. Just like your dad, right? The cruise industry has been is a significant component part of the economy, and as a result, there are lots of things lawyers can do to service that industry because they need help in everything they do. Speaking of which, by the way, how is your business with respect to?
Oh man, it's ground to a complete halt.
Really?
Carnival is basically shut down. All they're trying to do all day long is trying to get every one of my pending cases stayed. Mm-hmm. So we've been busy fighting their motions to stay cases. And most of the time we've been successful because they don't really have a really good argument as to why they can't defend these cases in the middle of a pandemic. But some judges have agreed, and they entered 30-day orders to stay cases, and now those 30 days are coming up, and Carnival has done little to nothing to move those files. So Carnival's been tough. Norwegian's the only cruise line that's really even talking about us. It seems that they're more interested in seeing if they can get some cases resolved rather than just have them stick around. But Alex, if people aren't going on cruises and because there's no cruises and people aren't getting hurt on cruises, the maritime personal injury industry of which I am involved in is basically at a standstill.
When do they expect cruises to start back up again?
Thank you. They keep moving the dates. So first it was June, now it's July, and Carnival's announced that they think in July they're going to start operating again. But who's going to want to go on a cruise is the big question. I mean, after the horror stories that you hear about being stranded or quarantined off the coast of, California for weeks at a time, people are probably, I'm imagining, being a little reluctant.
You get a great deal, though. Great deal.
I'm worried about that too, because if people are losing their jobs and losing income, the last thing they're going to have money for is to go on a cruise. So I'm really concerned about it, to be honest with you. I'm concerned that the cruise industry is going to take months, if not years, to get back to where it was, but it's going to start with us getting some kind of vaccine for this virus. Wow. I love cruising, but I don't think I would subject my family or myself to a cruise until I knew there was some way to protect ourselves from, being in such close proximity to people for a week at a time.
Oh, absolutely.
I may have to look at construction law, which by the way, Nory, that's how I met Alex, is we were on opposite sides of a case. And what doesn't happen often enough happened with us, where we developed a respect and a friendship for each other, even though he represented the defendant in a case and I was representing the plaintiff. We became lifelong friends.
That's right. That's right. How long ago was that? That was maybe 10, 15 years ago?
I don't even know if he was born. So he's 17. It may have been between 15 and 20 years ago. You haven't changed at all. You looked exactly the same back then.
I don't know about that. If I had hair now, it would all be gray. So, that's what gives me that younger look, I guess.
Well, I think so. Listen, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It's been thrilling to spend some time with you, and the information you've shared is extremely valuable. People who are watching this, if they're interested in consulting with Alex Barthet, who I can tell you is one of the most experienced and well-respected construction law attorneys in the country, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Email alex@barthet.com.
And he is very responsive, far more responsive probably than any lawyer I know. If you send him an email, you'll get a response from Alex Barthet.
I appreciate that, Spencer.
Oh,
And
thanks for doing this.
anytime. Well, that last most important question, Nory,
Yeah.
what are you up to now?
What am I up to now?
Yeah.
Music production mostly, and just like trying to not gain too much weight.
It's like I have a Jewish Kanye West living at home. He's got an album that's coming out soon.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have a music label?
No, not yet. One day.
You know, so I saw on so there's an Instagram channel that I think is required to follow if you live in Dade County, which is the only in Dade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I saw this morning that they're letting people submit songs to them, and then they will put it on the Instagram channel, and then people will vote for it. So you got to get your music on. You got to submit it to them.
Ooh, I'll do that.
He'll do that, and he'll tag you.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, my friend. Thanks again for being our guest here today. Always a pleasure to see Alex Barthet. Nory, we've got some more interesting guests coming up this week. Who else is going to be on?
Well, I'm not quite familiar because you did the scheduling for some of them, but I do know that the mayor responded back, and we're going to have them on the podcast next week.
Oh, that's the mayor of what?
Of Miami-Dade.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And we have an attorney later today from Korea, who's an immigration attorney, who's going to be talking about some of the issues that undocumented people are facing during the coronavirus. So an interesting conversation today with Alex Barthet. I loved hearing from him and seeing him.
Yeah, me too.
If you're interested in being a guest on the Trust Me, I'm a Lawyer podcast, what's the best way?
Just email us at trustmeimalawyerpodcast@gmail.com. It's probably the best way.
All right. Thank you again, Alex.
Talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.
Everybody, be safe.
Bye.
Thanks, you too.